Okay.
But so the 3-wire temp sensor is down there, and the directions I had was, to connect those 2 wires and the third one for the gauge.
Okay.
The problem is this wire is actually coming from the...
You say this wire, is it both of the purple and the yellow?
Yep, they're coming from the harness that goes to the injectors.
Okay.
Which is from the Alero.
Okay.
You know how we had to rewire all that?
Yeah.
And so it's weird to me that the gauge kind of works but isn't accurate. But I cannot find the 2 similar wires to the donor card down here that come and plug into it. And so I guess my biggest thing is I'm not certain that these are the 2 right wires.
Okay. If they're not the right wires, then like what?
Well, that's what bugs me. Why isn't something else screwing up? It seems like if they're wrong, there should be some other sensor that's not going right. And if you cross the ALDL, you get no codes.
Yeah.
And that's what's weird. And I'm not sure why. Maybe I just don't have the right scanner tool, but I feel like we're not communicating to the computer right, because there's got to be something else. But the car starts every time.
Yeah.
Usually partway through the warm-up cycle, it'll die once, but it starts right back up.
Yeah.
And I think that's because it's not finding the idle. Every now and then when you're driving, like say you're cruising down highway speed and you push the clutch in, it'll die, but it'll fire right back up, even if you dump the clutch or whatever like that. And I feel like it's not learning the idle right.
Interesting.
And so, like if you let off the throttle quickly, sometimes it dies too quick, and the idle doesn't catch back up.
Okay.
And when I read some of the troubleshooting stuff, it said that the way that it goes to find the idle control,
I know this, yeah,
is by temperature and fan cycles and things like that. And so I got this feeling that it's all interrelated. I just can't figure out what the deal is. And it bothers me a little bit that these wires, which had a temperature lead on them, came from up there instead.
Okay, so the 3-temp sensor is in the back.
The 3-temp sensor is right here. There is only one sensor now.
Yes.
See it right down there?
Yeah, it's that guy. Okay.
Into the water jacket.
Yeah, and then that comes out and goes right to this.
Yep.
Okay, and then this goes to the sensor in the back.
That was the wire that used to go to the other sensor in the back.
Okay, now this is going to the gate. What is this going to?
That's the gauge wire.
The gauge wire.
Yep.
Okay.
But you see, I think that if one of these has a different or improper ground, that could be causing the gauge problem.
Okay.
Maybe.
And then again, these go where again?
They go up to the harness for the injectors.
Okay.
And so there's a pair of wires that goes to each injector.
Yeah.
And then those run up through this. And so if I look here, which this part intrigues me a little bit, is I got purple and yellow up here that run around the coil pack. And so I don't know if somewhere in the change that the temperature ran through the coil pack, and maybe in the older car it didn't. But when I looked through all those references we had, I wasn't finding exact matches to what we have here. Yeah. And I haven't found a good way without completely tearing the dash apart to figure out which wires are running where.
Yeah.
And that's really where the hang up ended up.
Okay. So if you were to be like, the next thing that you would do, I mean, what would that be?
If I couldn't find a reference that I really trusted, I've got a little mistrust of stuff online. That it's great, but not all the answers are right.
Yeah.
But the way to tell it for sure is to either be able to get to the end of these wires or to the back of the dash and say, okay, this wire goes here, or this wire goes to the ECM, or whatever.
And so you think that maybe these wires aren't going to the ECM? Is that? Or
they're a different sensor or something. But it bugs me that the car runs fine except for this whole idle thing.
Yeah.
And it just seems like if I had a sensor completely wired wrong, that something else would run bad.
And again, I'm sorry for repeating myself. Where do these come from? These before you spliced these things, what were these?
They had a probe similar to this, coming off of that harness.
Okay.
But that harness and this whole injection setup underneath the injection rail is off of like an 05 Alero.
Yeah, that I know. Yeah.
And so somewhere in there, maybe I'm sure
these were connected. These were part of the Alero.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, the purple side.
The purple and the yellow. What was the yellow?
Yep, both of them.
Yellow and purple came from the Alero.
Yep. Because if you take this apart, they'll run up and underneath the plenum here to where all the injectors go, and then all that stuff plugs in through the coil packs and everything for its timing.
Yeah.
And so I had this wrapped up better, but I unwrapped it.
That's
just
fine.
To be able to see
that. And so again, that's this blue and white and whatever color this is coming off here and then splice it into that.
So that is the pigtail that goes to the 3-wire sensor.
Yeah. Okay.
So, previously the car had a 2-wire sensor there.
Yeah.
And then it had a single wire
Yeah.
in the back for the gauge, and we basically combined them.
Okay. Other things like is the air conditioner in?
The air conditioner works.
Okay.
I tried it the other day, and the Freon had leaked out.
Okay.
And I found that this Schrader valve is no good.
Okay.
I tried to tighten it, and it wouldn't, so that hose is going to need to be changed.
Okay. So this Schrader valve is junk.
But
okay.
the AC works fine if
Okay.
it doesn't leak. And,
Okay.
And pretty much, I don't even know why I didn't change that one, but everything else has been changed. This is new, the condenser's new,
Yeah.
the compressor's new, and for some reason we didn't have that hose.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if I tried looking and maybe had a hard time getting it, and maybe that's why I didn't.
Okay.
But other than that, the AC works fine. It just it leaked out.
Okay.
And I can recharge that for you. That's not a big deal if we need to.
How do you think the I know this is always this thing, you just duct taped it and it seems to be so far.
Have you seen other options for that?
Some people just take them out.
I tried epoxy one time,
Yeah.
and it didn't hold very good. The duct tape looks ugly, but it does. It's been okay.
Yeah, I don't know if there is a good solution. To be
I think
honest
the
with
only
you.
other thing is if you can get like a K&N filter.
Well, that's what a lot of people do. Is
Yeah.
they just take it off and they just put a K&N on it and
Yeah.
then call it good.
Yep. Because that thing is a bitch to get in there. It doesn't completely push on it, but it does push on the radiator hose a little bit. And that's the third one. That's the best one I found so far. Actually, I think you gave me the note on that off of maybe Montana or something like
Something weird.
that. Yep.
Okay, and I'm just trying to other things that of note. I'm just
The other thing that I just didn't get to because we'd been working on all this is the clutch safety switch.
okay.
So right now you can start it with the clutch out, so you just got to be careful of that.
Okay.
But
Don't do that. Okay.
yeah, yep.
And the shift cables are functioning now.
Yeah, I would say that we kind of took the automatic shifter and kind of rigged it on there.
Okay.
You'll probably want to find a different knob for it.
I've got one.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, it seems to be okay.
Okay.
So, yeah. The biggest thing right now is there's no pattern on it, so it takes you a few minutes to get used to where reverse and everything is. But reverse is over and down, and then.
Oh yeah, that.
But you probably know that stuff.
I've got that ingrained in my brain.
Yep.
And brakes are functioning
Oh, yeah,
good
yep.
and cool.
Yep. And it's got all new calipers and stuff on it that you got us. So
Awesome.
drums, all that stuff is done.
And the race clutch works now. And
Yep.
Okay.
You know what? That was another. This car is cursed because everything that could go wrong has. But when we put it in, I had to pull the tranny out twice to get the clutch to work, and I talked to people at the clutch manufacturer and from the transmission, and they've all like, yeah, you never have to shim those. And then I explain and so, yeah, you're gonna have to shim that.
Well, because basically this car goes from 115 horsepower, 120 to 200.
Right.
And so you're gonna burn your clutch up if you don't put a bigger clutch in it. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
And so they're like, if you baby it, it'll be fine. But if you get on it at all, you're gonna burn it up. And
Yep.
so I was like, well, all right, let's just try to do that. So you ride it, and the temp sensor, even on open highway, an open road, temp sensors.
What'll happen is when you start warming it up, it'll come up slowly and it looks like everything's fine, and then it'll just keep going until it pegs. And initially that made me nervous, so I was always shutting it down, letting it cool down.
Yeah.
But then I got to figuring out it's actually not even getting hot. It's just the gauge is
Well,
too far.
that was one thing. I was like what? So we think your best guess is it's a false positive. Like it's not actually getting that hot.
Yep.
There's just something that's not communicating correctly.
Yep.
Okay.
And I think that's leading to it having a hard time finding the idle.
What do you think is the longest you've ridden it?
Half hour.
Okay.
I mean, I drove it to Marshalltown once.
Okay.
This would have been probably last fall. Ran it through the car wash, put some gas in it, drove
Okay.
it back. So I mean, probably 30 miles.
Okay.
A little bit in town, a little bit.
Because I remember when I had to relearn this idle. Again, I followed whatever that process, but I don't think I did the process of when it sat still. I feel like it learned it.
Mm-hmm.
I learned the process when it was riding, and it had something specifications like you had to drive. I can't remember what it was. It's the same thing that you and I sent back and forth. At above 40 miles an hour for X or whatever. And because I couldn't get it to learn idle either, but then after reading that, doing what it said and driving it, not the letting it sit part for the fan part, it did. Mm-hmm. It did learn it.
Yep.
But I don't know.
But I mean, I'll bet you I I've probably put 100 miles on the car, but most of the trips were 5-mile trips from my garage out to the intersection and back.
Well, that's the thing, because like it has to be a longer trip. Like it
Yep.
can't be a 2-mile trip.
Right.
It's got to be a couple miles. It's got to be a consistent speed for over X miles or whatever it is, and then it should learn it. Okay.
And so, yeah, I feel like it, on the Marshalltown trips, it should have had the opportunity to learn.